To add to what Ed had to say there about what happens in the position where a panel has been told that it can have precept information but not the budget information, I think one of the key things to remember is that the power the panel has to request information it needs from the PCC to be able to do its job. So there's a relevant clause within the Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act which gives the panel the power to request information that it feels it needs to be able to satisfactorily do its job. And from that point of view, one would say that perhaps having the budget information is entirely necessary for it to make a judgment about whether a precept is reasonable, fair, and all of those things that Ed outlined. So I think in the particular position that we're talking about here, if the Office of the PCC is being uncooperative and just saying that they're going to give only going to give the precept information, that the panel will have to look at the powers it does have, and this is one of those powers, is to request that information that it wants to be able to do the job. The only caveat, I suppose, around its ability to be able to do that, it will be around timing, because if you don't get the paperwork until the 1st of February and looking at it and then not go back to the Office of the PCC and ask for that additional information, the Act states that the information has to be the request has to be responded to within a reasonable period of time. The paperwork has to be supplied within a reasonable period of time, but doesn't tell you what a reasonable period of time is. I know that some areas are looking at having protocols between the Office of the PCC and the panel, some of which do specify what a reasonable period of time is, so one would expect that to govern the situation, and one would expect where that doesn't apply, or indeed where there's problems over that interpretation, that you'd have to rely on kind of the judicial interpretation of what a reasonable period of time is, and people's legal departments might well be able to advise them as to what traditionally has been seen as a reasonable period of time in terms of requests for information in these sorts of circumstances, if there's been case law, and they may therefore need to take that into account when deciding whether or not to request information and how far away from the actual panel meeting which is considering the precept they need to make these requests.
Thanks very much.